hello, this is take two, just so you guys know. I have not pre-written anything. My videos aren't even pre-planned. I just have thoughts, and sometimes I pre-plan my thoughts, and sometimes I don't. So anyway, this video, first of all, happy Hanukkah. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, because I still want you to be happy with what you're celebrating. I want you to be happy. But anyway, there's nothing wrong with saying happy holidays. That just includes Hanukkah, and that's my opinion. But I celebrate Hanukkah, so Anyway, so this video is for Jews, Messianics, and Christians. And heck, anybody who's watching this, anybody who finds it. That being said, I have a lot of thoughts in my mind. There is so much, like, a lot that I knew, but I just haven't thought about in a while, and I haven't realized seriously to what extent, such a great extent, some things are in my head that I'm going to talk about. But first of all, there's a lot of hate towards Messianics and a lot of hate towards Christians who celebrate Hanukkah by the Jews. So that's one thing. And another thing is the Jews, in the Bible it says that believers in Messiah are supposed to win the Jews by making them jealous of our relationship with God, or how we worship God. It does say that. There's a verse in that. Anyway, I just haven't had time. I'm sorry, I have a newborn and I have so much going on, but there's a verse that says that. You just have to take my word on it, or just keyword it in Google. Anyway, or I'll find it for you later if you want me to. But for now, point is that we are supposed to win people by example, are we not? Just say it that way. That's basic. We all know that we're supposed to try to win people by our example, the example that we set. The things that we do supposed to pull people in, which is why churches do things the way they do. But really, Christians are supposed to be different. We're supposed to be different. And anyway, I don't want to get off on a tangent on that right now, but what I do want to say is this. The thing that the Jews tend to be jealous of, or that they are adopting from Christianity, which really they're not adopting it from Christianity, they're just adopting it from the world, is the Christmas tree. I mean, you don't have to be Christian to have a Christmas tree. Obviously. Go to Target, go to Walmart, go to any store. I mean, I don't even have to tell you guys. And that's a world thing. That's not a Christian thing. That's just a world thing. And it was a world thing before Christians adopted it. Anyway, I'm not even going to go there right now, but my point is okay, so we have Jews who part of Hanukkah have, which I knew this isn't news to some of you, it might be news to some of you, but to the extent, if you guys only know, the Christmas tree is Hanukkah bush for Jews. Some of them have green, most of them have a white one or a blue one, and then they decorate it with the Star of David up on top. Some of them, not all of them. I'm just saying these are some things they do. They might have ornaments on the actual trees, which they call a bush. I think that they think that they're like baptizing it by calling it a bush, or because, well, someone out there tell me why. Because really those are, only thing I think is maybe because they just want it to sound different, they want it to sound unique. Or is it because in Hebrew it would be called a bush? I don't know. In any case, they call it the Hanukkah bush instead of the Hanukkah tree. Or is it just because that way it won't sound so worldly, it'll sound more Jewish if they coin it a different way, So we've got that going on. It's not like they're saying, oh, I really want to go celebrate Christmas in the church. They're not doing that. They're not trying to go celebrate Christmas in a church. They're not trying to put a nativity up in their house, And Santa Claus, there is a version of that. Some of them do. where it's like a rabbi kind of guy or a Jewish kind of guy looking guy, and I don't know. So they have that, but they're not jealous. They're not trying to be like, oh, I want to worship Jesus now. They're not doing that. They're just adopting the tree, which, like I said, is a world thing. It's like a everybody thing. It's not a Christian thing. So that's not really winning them to Christ. Anyway, so there's a lot of them with the Hanukkah bush. Oh, sorry. I guess I'm more tired than I thought I was. I don't get a lot of sleep at night because my husband snores, and that's a big issue. But anyway, and it's late at night, and I should be sleeping, I guess, but I'm not. Well, actually, it's not that late yet. Anyway, so the Hanukkah bush, they have that. And so I saw this thing tonight where it was a picture of some guy dressed as Santa Claus, and he was praying at the man alive. I keep yawning. Sorry, you guys. Man alive. Maybe I should just not do this video. I'm yawning too much. Maybe I just need to breathe more. Anyway, there's this picture of this guy dressed as Santa Claus praying at the Berlin Wall. Why do I want to say that? I don't know. I have all this other stuff I've been thinking about lately. Yes, I was thinking about Germany the other day and Hitler and all this crazy stuff. I was thinking about how things went bad, and so I was thinking about that actually yesterday. So maybe that's why I accidentally said that. But no, I mean at the wall in Jerusalem. You know, they had a Santa Claus praying at the wall in Jerusalem, and I'm like, okay, what's the point in that? Why is he really doing that? Is he doing that out of his heart because he wants to pray for the Jews? He wants to pray with the Jews? Is he trying to make a statement that statement that anti-Semitism is bad? Or what? But I just think that it is so sacrilegious, in my opinion. You know, Santa Claus has nothing to do with God. It just doesn't. And so is he trying to, you know, be like, oh, look, Jews, you know, here I am, a Santa Claus praying with you. But I mean, I guess it's good for anybody to pray, you know. It's just that it just don't look good, in my opinion. But it's just, I don't know, it's just kind of crazy. Maybe it's good and it's bad. And it looks sacrilegious, you know. But then again, I don't know. Maybe, I don't know. Don't know what to think about that. You know, I guess it could be good, but it's also, it really does look sacrilegious to me, you know. Because Santa Claus has nothing to do with, it's just not, it has nothing to do with Jesus' birth, and it has nothing to do with God. But him as a person praying, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, and then somebody mentioned, okay, well, the Jews wrote a ton of, somebody mentioned how Jews wrote a ton of Christmas songs, and someone else mentioned it the other day, and so that was in my mind, you know, because I knew that, but, you know, it just brought it to the forefront of my mind. Why did Jews write Christmas music if they don't believe in Jesus? What kind of Christmas music did they write? You know, Christian songs and songs about Santa Claus. Why? Did some of them secretly believe in Jesus? Were they starting to believe? Did they just think that it would be pretty and they're doing the Christians like a gift to them? Or is it that they're doing something else? Because the thing is, things are never as they seem, you know? And I can't say one way or another because I didn't know the people who authored those songs, so I can't really judge them. I can't really say. It just makes me wonder because in the groups for Hanukkah, there are some, and not just in groups for Hanukkah, and other places on the internet, and so that's just, you know, exposes what, you know, some people are thinking. Anyway, other places too, like on YouTube and stuff like that, I've seen comments, but especially lately in some Hanukkah groups, there are some people who just aren't very friendly towards Messianics, especially, or towards Christians. If they're wanting to celebrate Hanukkah, boy, they get all upset about that. They do not want Christians or Messianics, people who believe in Jesus, otherwise known as Yeshua, you know, the Messiah, Jesus Christ, the Messiah. He is the Messiah. We know that. They don't want to believe anybody who so that's where the word Messianics come from, because it's people who follow Messiah, people who may have been Jewish, or people who follow Jewish traditions like celebrating Hanukkah and Sukkot and all that. However, there's argument too about that. Who's really Messianic and who's not? Man alive, there's some hate out there. But anyway, they do not want them celebrating. So my thought is that why the songs were written? To push people further away, further into Christmas? You give them beautiful music and stuff like that, then they're gonna, have even more warm and fuzzies for the tradition, for the celebration, Remember that Satan is said to have been the most beautiful angel, and he had the most beautiful voice. He was the most beautiful singer of all the angels, right? People tend to forget about that. Like, nobody really thinks about that in context to life now, and if Satan was the angel who had the most beautiful voice, and then why is it that we don't, and people talk about how, like, modern music, like Christian or non-Christian, they'll say, oh, well, you could be led astray by music, and you can tell it's bad influence, and Satan was the most beautiful angel who sings, so he's so the power of the air or whatever. But they don't realize that, well, what about Christian music, like as far as Christmas music, not just Christian rock and stuff like that. What about, just really nice, beautiful Christmas music? What was the true intent of some of it, if Jews wrote so much of it? Did they do it because they just thought it was beautiful and would be a nice gift to Christians? Maybe. Did they do it because they secretly believed but didn't want to outright say it because they'd be excommunicated? Maybe. Or was it to get people even more deep into celebrating Christmas and even more wanting to celebrate it, push them more, because the Jews now, like I said, they get so upset when they see Christians or Messianics celebrating Hanukkah, and they say, oh no, you're not Jews. They'll even tell people who were raised in synagogues and chose to believe in Messiah, they'll say that they're no longer Jews. As they say, so therefore they shouldn't be celebrating Hanukkah. Even those that were raised in synagogues, if they chose to believe in Messiah, they're not supposed to celebrate Hanukkah anymore, or anything else that is Jewish. It's just, so it makes me wonder, so why was the music written? Was it to try to get people even more in love with Christmas? So that they wouldn't celebrate these Jewish traditions? Because the Jews certainly don't want you celebrating it. Well, I'm not going to say all Jews, because that's not true, but there are a lot of them that don't. They think it's just for them. And, because they're the chosen people, but they don't realize that they were chosen to be the example. They were chosen to be the example to believers of God. It's what they were chosen to do. They weren't chosen as a unique people to keep all those traditions to themselves. They're supposed to be teaching those traditions, not just the meaning of the traditions, but the traditions, how to do them, why to do them. And Christians, a lot of them, they don't realize that really they should be doing the traditions that the Jews do. Only, of course, we see Messiah in those traditions, which is why the Jews don't want us doing them. Do you know, way back in time, remember when the Catholic Church was formed and all the saints, people started to worship saints and stuff like that? And if you do any studying, you'll see that there are some teachings, I don't know if they're true, but anyway, some teachings that a lot of the idols were, that are in some of the Catholic churches, especially in Rome, were originally gods, and then they were just renamed as saints. In any case, where was I going with that? Because I tried to keep on track a little bit. Oh yeah. So anyway, so then they're trying to say, well, the Romans are the ones that created Catholicism, and they're the ones, that got away from Jewish traditions on their own because they didn't want to be like the Jews. Well, is that really true? Maybe. Surely there's some truth to that. There's always half-truths and stuff. But also, the Jews, as I've read, oh, Christians, they dirty the Sabbath, and even way back then they thought that they would dirty the Sabbath because, they followed Messiah, so therefore they shouldn't be celebrating Sabbath because they filthy up the Sabbath by celebrating it, because one, either they didn't know how because, some of them were not raised Jewish, or because they believed in Messiah, then certainly they shouldn't be celebrating Sabbath because they believe in Messiah. So that makes it, that means that they're dirtying the Sabbath. Well, Sabbath, that's Saturday. Well, anyway. And so why wouldn't they think the same thing about Hanukkah? Because that's what I'm saying now. They think that Christians and Messianics should not be celebrating Hanukkah because, they filthy it. They're messy. They make it messy. That's what some of them say. They make it messy. Get it, Messianics? They make it messy, so they shouldn't be celebrating it because they believe in Messiah. So they mess it up. They make it messy. They didn't want the followers of Messiah to be doing anything Jewish. So then, of course, I read something a long time ago, so I don't have proof of it now, so I don't have like sources or anything, but I read about how they ran some of the priests off into the mountains. And that was like before Catholicism became what it is now, way back in Bible times and stuff. When the church was first forming, before it was actually called Catholic. Anyway, but this is the truth. I mean, think about it. Yeah, there are ones that didn't want to be like the Jews. But there were also those that wanted to keep their Jewish traditions, but they felt that they couldn't. And of course, we know that people were killed by the Jews. I mean, we know about Paul. Paul talked about how he killed, was guilty of, ending the lives of so many believers of Messiah. They don't want us celebrating it now, just like they didn't then. That's how the Christians came further and further away from the Jewish traditions and the Jewish celebrations, because they were afraid to. And then also those that didn't want to, because they did grow a hate for the Jews. They grew a hate for the Jews because the Jews mistreated them. They ran them off. They were afraid of them, and there was that aspect. Or they didn't just, they hated them for whatever other reason, so they didn't want to be like them. But there are others, like I said, that they didn't celebrate because they were afraid, and the Jews didn't want them celebrating it, which is also how Sunday came to be. It wasn't just because of all the things that we all hear about, about the gods and stuff like that, and sun worship, and, combining days. As much as that might be true, it also happened because people were afraid to celebrate on the Sabbath, and because the Jews didn't want them worshiping on Sabbath. Anyway, so there's a lot of hate in those groups. They get so mad about it, and it's just crazy. And the thing is, so that's what I'm thinking about, like, as far as the story of the Maccabees and, them fighting for religious freedom. Well, we have religious freedom in this country because of the Maccabees, for one. That's part of where it all started, and because of our own soldiers fighting for our freedoms. We have freedom in this country to worship as we please. And so those of us who want to celebrate Hanukkah are going to do it. And it doesn't matter how ugly the Jews might, some of the Jews, not all of them, because some of them are nice, But I'm just saying some of them don't want Messianics or just regular Christians celebrating Hanukkah to any degree. There are mixed families out there too, Christians married to Jews, so they'll have both in their home. They'll have a Christmas tree and do Christmas and stuff like that, and they'll do Hanukkah, and they say they can't do it either. They want to decide who can do it and who can't, and it's not up to them. So I wanted to say that first of all. Now, I mentioned, I don't know if I mentioned it or not because this is take 2. I'm going to include, I'm going to put on my recommended videos, Rabbi Zeb Parat. He makes a really good argument, and he mentions some things that I've always thought of. As far as the 7-candle menorah, I do actually light one. Why do I light one? Not Jews. Oh man, they get mad about that. And they say, oh, no Jewish people do that. Well, Zeb Parat was born a Jew. He was raised Jewish in a synagogue. And he believes you're only supposed to use a 7-candle menorah, even for Hanukkah. I do. I also use the regular Hanukkah. Why? Because it's just a candelabra. It's just symbolic, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, because it's just counting the days. And so, but I will use a 7 candle because that is the way it was. And it's not an actual menorah, you know, it's just a very small symbol. It just symbolizes the menorah. They say you can't light a 7 candle menorah because, you know, there is, you know, there is no temple right now and all that stuff. And so that's why we're not supposed to, which that's just what they've been told by rabbis. Truth is that they just don't light one because it was an 8-day miracle. At least that's what Zephrat says. Actually, I think that they might be partly telling the truth, that they truly believe that. But it's not the same thing because it's just symbolic. It's nothing close to what a true menorah would look like. The true thing, obviously, is really big and beautiful. It's just, there's just no way. It's just symbolism. Anyway, but I think that Zephrat is right. I do agree with him, except for, like I said, I'm still going to do my regular, and that's the way I've been doing it. And so, but I'm going to include that on there. And I'm just going to say that Zephrat is also right because he says that, you know, our body is our body is our temple now. That's what Messianics believe. That's what Christians believe. That, you know, when Jesus died on the cross, the curtain was ripped, and so therefore we can enter the Holy of Holies. We can pray spiritually because it's not physical, and it's not a physical place anymore. It's within our own hearts and minds. That's where the temple is. We can enter the Holy of Holies by prayer alone. We don't have to physically be in a temple to enter a Holy of Holies. So therefore, that's another reason why we can light the 7 candle menorah, because really there is a temple. It's within our heart, within our soul. And when we pray, we can enter it because our spirit kind of goes there. Because God opened it up. Jesus opened it up when he died on the cross, and God tore the curtain, you know, so that we could enter. So yeah, another one's going to be built physically, but the true one is already in existence, which the Jews don't realize that. They don't believe that, but we believe that. So there's that. But it just is so shocking to me, like how much anger, so much hate is out there just because people want to celebrate Hanukkah that weren't raised in a synagogue. And anyway, another thing to mention is that, okay, so where are people really going to go? What synagogues can people really go to? Because they're woke just like all the churches are. Some of you might believe that you have a decent church to go to. Some of you, if you're Jewish, might believe that you have a decent synagogue to go to. But I certainly don't have any in this area where I live. Not that I know of. And not that I agree with. As far as teachings anyway, I might still be willing to go to one, but I can't because the only ones I see around here, you know, people talk about it on Facebook, and it sure looks to me like they're all woke, you know. So anyway, the synagogue here is woke. So there's where you're going to go anyway. It's within your own heart. It's within your own heart. You don't have to go to synagogue to celebrate Hanukkah. You don't have to have been raised in a synagogue to celebrate Hanukkah. And there are decent rabbis out there online. If you can't find one in your local area, like Zephrat, he's not too bad. Lion and Lamb Ministries are not too bad. However, I don't agree with how they're doing the calendar now. That's annoying. They're, you know, the Hebrew calendar. Well, they're not going by the Hebrew calendar. They're going by another one that I don't remember what it's called, because he says that that's how everybody wants it. That's not how everybody wanted it. It's just like this new thing, and, you know, there are groups of people, and he's like, okay, because everybody wants us to do it well, but he's supposed to rise above. He's supposed to be the more intelligent one. He's not supposed to be pleasing everybody just because that's what everybody wants. So that one thing I do disagree on. But he's been a pretty good teacher, the guy over at Lion and Lamb Ministries. There's a couple others I've liked. But as far as locally, depending on where you live, there may not be one. There isn't for me. Anyway, so there's that. So I really think that, you know, we really need to try. I do try. I kind of wonder how Like Zebfrot, for instance, he lives in Israel. And there are others that live in Israel who are Messianics. They were either raised a Jew or they were raised a Christian, but either way, they follow the Jewish traditions, the Jewish ways. Well, I shouldn't say Jewish, just say God's festivals. They follow God's festivals and God's laws, like the Sabbath and eating kosher and celebrating Sukkot and celebrating Passover and celebrating Hanukkah, things like that. Anyway, I kind of wonder how, the ones of them that try to win Jews over to Messiah, how they do it, how they can do it often. I've tried recently, just somehow I was just like, oh, a Hanukkah page, that looks nice, well, and then I saw a Messianic one for Messianics, and it's Jews and Gentiles together. Well, when they say Jew and Gentile, you already know that actually it may not be so nice, but anyway, I joined that. Silly me. Because, yeah, there are some nice people out there. And actually, it's funny because the ones that do the Christmas tree and stuff like that tend to be nicer than the ones that don't. And then, as far as the Messianic and the Jewish groups, because I don't know. I mean, they are all about, love everyone and all this stuff. And they believe a lot of stuff, a lot of them tend to be like more Democrat-like in ways, but they can be nicer. Whereas you have the others, not very nice. Some of them. Obviously, not everyone from every group is going to be the same. I'm just saying, like, the ones that do the Christmas tree and I believe would be more LGBTQ-ish and stuff like that. For some reason, they can be a little bit more nice and more welcoming and be like, oh yeah, they can celebrate Hanukkah, Of course, they believe that you can celebrate Christmas too and all this stuff, as far as the tree, or they believe that, well, I would call it Yule because they don't really believe in doing the Christmas part. However, they are kind of supportive of people who do both, also, the ones who are actually Christians, and they actually tend to be the more supportive ones, ironically. But anyway, it's very difficult to be in those groups because sometimes certain topics come up and, well, little old me can't keep my mouth shut and I end up in some of those conversations. However, I try to keep my cool and not say too much because it's just going to end up in an argument. I don't want to argue. But I'll say something, and even if it's just a small little something, like, well, I'm going to celebrate it, and you're not going to tell me I'm not. But they just could be so mean about it. No, you can't celebrate Hanukkah, and all this stuff. You're not a Jew, Only Jews can celebrate. Or they're telling people that they're not Jews just because they believe in Messiah. And anyway, so yeah, I'll be like, well, we all worship the same God, and God created these. Well, I don't know, God didn't exactly start Hanukkah, but in a way he did, because obviously God is the one who helped them win the battle, and they wouldn't have Hanukkah if it wasn't for that battle being won. And I personally believe that the miracle of the oil is true. That's me personally. I talked about that in another video. You guys can go searching for it. But anywho's it's just yeah, I think that what we really do need to do is we, as Christians, do need to be celebrating Hanukkah. We need to keep doing it. We need to keep with the story of the Maccabees. Like I said, not be afraid to stand up for what's right and what's true. It can be a very scary thing to do, especially if we didn't have freedom of religion like we do in this country. Then it would be much more scary thing to do. So I can't speak for what I would do in a situation like that. I don't know. Hopefully I'd be okay. Same for all of you guys. But as far as since we do right now have freedom of religion and freedom of speech to some degree, then we should do our best to be an example and celebrate them, whether they say we can or not. Just do it. After all, if they can have a Hanukkah bush, well, the ones that don't believe in the Hanukkah bush are more the ones saying that we can't celebrate Hanukkah. The ones that do have the bush, they're not really against us celebrating Hanukkah, ironically. But anyway, we need to be the light and we need to be the example, and we do need to celebrate Hanukkah. There's a lot of meaning to Hanukkah, even for Christians. And a friend of mine, her and other people have said, that if it weren't for Hanukkah, we wouldn't have a Messiah. Well, I don't know if that's true or not, because you know what? If God plans for there to be a Messiah, there's going to be a Messiah. But, because in the time of the Maccabees, had they killed all the Jews off, or had they just gotten rid of the religion, they wouldn't have. There would have always been some people celebrating or worshiping or believing in secret. So it wouldn't have happened. And yes, there would have been a Messiah. It might have been longer in coming, though. It might have been longer in coming. It might not have. If it wasn't for Hanukkah, would we have a Messiah? Would we not? I believe we would. But like I said, it might have come about a different way. Might have come about much later time. Because God wins, of course. Anyway, so those are just some of my thoughts for right now. I'm sure I have more, but those are my thoughts for now. But I do hope that there are more and more of you guys that are willing to look at the story of Hanukkah. Even if you don't celebrate it, just go, listen to some teachings on it, because there's a lot that can come from it. We have the same Bible. We have the same God. God wrote the Bible. People wrote the Bible, but because of things that God did, or God inspired them, or God told them to write it. And the book of Maccabees may just be a historical book, but that was still in Bible times. It's between the Old Testament and the New Testament. God was working in the Old, God was working in the New, then why wouldn't God work in between? God was working in between. And I believe that's why, the battle was won for the Maccabees, because God was involved in that. And I do believe in the miracle of the oil. If God was doing miracles in the Old Testament, and God did miracles in the New Testament, why couldn't he have done that miracle? Why would that be a false thing? Was it true? Was it not? Maybe it wasn't true. I believe it was true. Who are we to say? Because it was written down a long time later. A lot of things in the Bible were written after they happened. Even much later than they happened. So, in any case, there is a lot that can be learned from it, and I encourage people to do that. It's way too late to be telling you to not have a Christmas tree, and I believe that should be up to the person, because it takes a lot to give things up. It takes a whole lot of courage. It takes a lot of conviction. It takes a lot of courage not just to give something up, but to be different. Because if you give up the Christmas tree, then you're going to be different. And then you kind of feel like you're missing out because you're not one of the group. It's like with anything. Like family members that, there a lot of families might be getting together over the holidays, right? Over Christmas, or maybe over Hanukkah, or over New Year's, or it could be birthday parties, and you don't go because that there's going to be a lot of alcohol, and that no matter what, there ends up being a lot of drunkenness, so you don't go, but yet you feel like you're left out, you feel like you're missing out. Well, it's way more compounded if you give up a Christmas tree, then you feel like, oh, all of a sudden you're not included in anything, but you're including yourself, It's not like people couldn't come over to your house and have some donuts and latkes. And it's not like you couldn't go visit people. And I think that they don't realize that they can invite you. They can go, depending on your thoughts and beliefs and stuff, It takes a lot to give it up. Think about it. We expect people, like Muslims especially, that's what really big, right? We would like for them to give up a lot of stuff that they do. Think about it. If they decided to become Christian, they could be excommunicated. Not only that, they could have their lives ended. Family, friends, whoever. Sometimes it could be depending on who they are. Same thing for Chinese people. They've got all their traditions and stuff that go along with it. So They don't have to give up their traditions just because they decide to believe in Messiah. They're still Jews. And Christians, sorry Jews, but we do believe in your God. We have the Old Testament, which you do. The Torah, all the first books. The Torah, the Tanakh, we have all that. The Old Testament. And we have the New Testament, which you don't believe in. And the Book of Maccabees, the Catholics have that. And some Christians have bought it separately. I have it separate. I don't have a Catholic Bible in my house. But I do have the Book of Maccabees. In any case, we all started out with the Old Testament, the Torah, all the first books of the Bible, the first 5 chapters, all of it. We believe in the same God you believe in. We may not think so, but we believe in the same God you believe in. So therefore, we can worship that God and we can observe that God's festivals, whether you like it or not. And we will. So, it may seem offensive to you, but you got to realize that God is the creator of all. God created everybody. Every human being is a portion of God. God doesn't want just the Jews to believe in him. That's one thing. God doesn't just want the Jews to celebrate his festivals. You know why? Because God doesn't want people worshiping other gods, even if they're not Jews. See, that's why he chose the Jews, because Abraham, Isaac, Moses, they chose to believe in God. Or so many other people were either have forgotten about God and doing their own thing or had other gods. That's why God chose them. So that's why the Jews are the chosen people, because they came from them. You guys didn't do anything special to be Jews. You're ancestors of them. So now you're chosen. And you know what you're chosen to do? Be the example for everybody else. That's what you're chosen to do, to teach everybody and bring them all to God. That's the truth. God doesn't want anybody having all these other gods. And he really doesn't want them celebrating. He really doesn't want them celebrating him in a way that other gods were worshipped. It's the truth. It's in, I think it's in Corinthians chapter 10. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, I believe. And anyway, that can easily be Googled. It can be found. It can be looked up. But he says he doesn't want people to worship him in the way other gods were worshipped. But not only that, because then people say, oh, well, I'm not worshiping God with a Christmas tree. Kind of true. But he also says that he doesn't want us, doing as other nations did with their gods, and which is kind of sort of the same thing. But like, it's not just that. There are other things that happen when you adopt things that aren't of God or aren't part of worshiping him. Christmas tree isn't part of worshiping him. If you're not using the Christmas tree to worship Jesus for his birthday, then why is it called the Christmas tree? It's got the word Christ in it, doesn't it? So technically it is being used to worship Christ. You're just not bending down at it. You're not praying at the Christmas tree, not, well, some have, I suppose. I've seen some pictures of it, whatever, but yeah, you're not using it to worship him, but then again you are, because you're using it as part of your celebration for his birthday. And anyway, Jesus wasn't born now, and we all know it. We all know it's not really his birthday. And who uses a Christmas tree for their birthday? None of us. Jesus didn't either. In the Bible, where did it say that Jesus was celebrating his birthday? It doesn't say it, but it does say that Jesus was walking in the colonnades in the wintertime during Hanukkah, the Feast of Dedication. It does say that. And it didn't say that Jesus was saying that you shouldn't celebrate it or that those people shouldn't be celebrating it. He just used it as an opportunity to go there and to teach. But I believe that Jesus didn't celebrate his birthday personally. I believe he didn't celebrate it because, well, one, it doesn't seem to me that people really celebrated birthdays. They may have. There's not much mention of it except for kings. So people use that as an example of why not to celebrate birthdays. But in any case, I personally think that Jesus probably didn't celebrate his birthday because so many innocents were killed for his birthday. I mean, when he was trying to be taken to, when he was being looked for and they wanted to end Jesus's life so that he couldn't be Messiah, or he couldn't be king, that is. And so all those innocents were, their lives were ended because of that. And I think that that made Jesus sad, and I kind of think that that's why he didn't make a big stink about his birthday, And anyway, nobody celebrates their birthday with a Christmas tree. It's called a Christ Mass tree. The Mass, that's where you go and pray and take communion, and it's named after Christ. So it is being used to celebrate Jesus. Anyway, nobody uses a tree to celebrate their birthday. And so therefore, that tradition came from other things. And you all know that it came from other things. And yeah, it does, in a sense, symbolize life, because the pine tree doesn't exactly die. It does tend to lose some needles, depending on where it is. The one we have really doesn't lose a lot of needles. I've been in a pine tree forest where there was a lot of pine needles on the ground, actually, tons of them, all dry. But it's always said to be the green tree, it stays green, technically. And so yeah, it can symbolize life, but it has nothing to do with Jesus's birthday, though. It just is a thing of symbolizing life, that's it. But it's a separate thing, not the same thing. Anyway, so those are my thoughts for now. Those are just things that, people say that they want to see change and all that stuff. Well, if people want to see change, then they need to be the change. They need to be willing to change also. We want the Muslims to change. We want the Jews to change. We want the atheists to change. We want the Chinese people who believe in other gods to change, but we don't want to change. And that's the problem. We need to start with ourselves. So it's a little bit late to be telling you not to have a Christmas tree now, and don't want to ruin your Christmas or anything, but maybe consider doing less next year and focusing on your nativity. Like I've said in other videos, the tree is always bigger than the nativity. So, and it's interesting, the tree is also always bigger than the menorah, when they always have a menorah next to the Christmas tree. But if we expect the world to change, then we need to be willing to also. And we need to grow closer to God if we want to see change. And we really do need to see change, and we need to be willing to be the example. And you're not making people jealous of, wanting to become Christian with Christmas. You're just making them want the Christmas trees and the lights and stuff. And they've adopted that. So, not to say that people haven't been won to Christ because of Christmas, because good can come out of anything. But I'm just saying, if we're going to win the Jews especially, which is what we really need to do if we want to see Messiah come back, then we need to be the example for them. And the only way to do that is to do things the way God would have us do them, which is with his celebrations. And that's a very hard thing to do. And a lot of people, they're just not going to be able to do that. It's just too hard. But anything is possible with God, and it's something to think about for next year. And in any case, so those are my thoughts for now, but I still hope everybody to be happy and to enjoy what they're doing now. And changes, well, that can happen next year or in the coming year. New year, technically the new year is spring, and that's when everything is new, but still our new year is coming. And Christmas is and Hanukkah, those are supposed to be times when we're supposed to be thinking about a relationship with God and Jesus. So we can think about how we can improve things going forward, so that we can actually truly be strong enough in these times to be the examples that we're supposed to be. Anyway, so those are my thoughts. That's where I'm going to leave it for now. And I hope everybody happiness and safety and good health.